We are starting the second to last Torah portion in the whole Chumash. Parashat Hazinu is the second to last. And it is a short parasha. The parasha is a song. If you look in the Torah, it's not written like every other Torah portion. There's actually two columns, two shorter columns. And when we go through the words, they're very deep, even cryptic, and very hard to understand, to say the least. So this evening, the Zera Shimshon shows us one pasuk and what the true meaning of a tzaddik and a rasha is in the way that they receive, unfortunately, they're punished. Yet the underlying rule of what we're about to learn is how just and exact HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. So let's look at the pasuk. Pasuk is in chapter 32, verse 4. It says, Hatzur tamim pa'olo. Hatzur, the rock, is referring to God, is always perfect. Okay, his deeds and everything that he does, everything that he's created, pa'olo, is tamim. It's always wholesome and perfect. Kichol derachav mishpat, all of his ways are just. El emuna ve'en avel. He is a God of faith, a faithful God. Ve'en avel, and there is no iniquity. There's no deception. There's no trickery. Everything is just straight. Tzadik v'yashar hu, God is righteous and always on the path and straight. This is what the Torah is telling us about God. The Talmud tells us in Masechet Ta'anit that just as, listen to the terminology because this is what we're going to pick up on. Just as God punishes the wicked even for their slightest sins in the world to come, so too God punishes tzaddikim, righteous people, in this world, even for their slightest sins. This is what the Talmud says. We learn that the Reshaim are judged even on the slightest, so too tzaddikim are judged even on the slightest. The only difference is where? In the world to come for Reshaim, or in this world for tzaddikim. The Maharsha, one of the foremost commentaries on the Talmud, he asks, very interesting way the Gemara is reading. From the fact that God punishes the Reshaim, he also punishes the tzaddikim. It should have went the other way. The Talmud should have said, since God punishes tzaddikim in this world even for the slightest, so too in the next world he punishes the Reshaim even for the slightest. All the more so, he says, what do we see? We see, unfortunately, righteous people who suffer in this world, who are punished in this world. So that should be the direction the teaching is going in, based on what we see. And then it continues on to the next world for the Reshaim. He says the order of the Talmud seems to be opposite. Don't start from the Reshaim in the next world's punishment and then say also tzaddikim. Opposite. Start from tzaddikim that we see in this world and also the Reshaim. It's a little bit deep, but I think it's pretty clear. Listen to what the Zera Shimshon answers. He says, we already see throughout our Tanakh the great Hachamim and even the prophets question the comfort and tranquility of Reshaim. And he gives a couple examples. One example is what Yirmiyahu Hanavi says. He says, Madua derech Reshaim tzaleha. Why are the ways of the wicked prosperous? Doesn't make sense. Asaf, quoted in Tehillim, says as follows, Ki kineti beholelim shalom Reshaim er'eh. He says, I've seen peace amongst the wicked. Why? And there are more examples. And to that, the Zera Shimshon tells us a concept which the Talmud says, and we've heard before, is God operates in a certain way. And this is the way it is. That he sees a righteous person who's trying to fulfill the Torah to its best, and what he does is he takes that individual and he wants to give him the best everlasting blessing possible. And that is in the world to come. So what he does is he sends, unfortunately, some hardship and some pain. Because no one's perfect, even the tzaddik has some imperfection. So he takes that imperfection, turns it into hardship to clean off any of the sins that the person has done, in order that in the world to come it's everlasting bliss and closeness and connection to God. And he does the opposite for Reshaim. You know what he does for Reshaim? Every Rasha, almost every Rasha, has done something good. One thing, a couple things good. You know what Hashem says? But the person's so wicked. So in the world to come, he's going to have everlasting pain and punishment, unfortunately. And in this world, any of the good that they did will pay them back for in this world. Right? The focus is forevermore. It's after 70, 80 years that we live in this world. It's for the next world. So based on what the person's majority is, are they mainly tzaddik or mainly rasha, Hashem tries to make it as if here they either suffer so that they have it perfect in the next world, or here they have it even better, so this way it's the real punishment and complete punishment, unfortunately, in the next world. And this is a concept we know. But now listen to what he quotes. He quotes at the end of Parashat V'et Hanan, God refers to Reshaim in a very special way, in a very sad and scary way even. It says, Shalem lesone'av el panav leha'avido. This is in chapter 7, verse 10 in Deuteronomy. That's the end of Parashat V'et Hanan. He says that God repays those who hate him to their face. The Zera Shimshon picks up and he says, a rasha, you know why they are a rasha? Or you know how he categorizes, how he labels a rasha? Someone who hates Hashem, unfortunately. So we would have thought that maybe Hashem won't judge them so stringently even on their bad. Hashem is just and straight. Even for lighter sins or slighter sins, Hashem will still punish them for. But now what would you say about a tzaddik? If a rasha is someone who hates God, a tzaddik is someone who loves God. You might think that because you're an individual who loves God, Hashem's going to overlook the petty sins. The Torah is telling us God is so just. El emunah is a faithful God, ve'en avel, and there's no iniquity. There's no tipping of the scales. Hashem is just even to tzaddikim and even to their slightest of sins. And that's why he proves the order the Talmud was. Because it's more obvious to us that a rasha is going to get punished in the world to come. We might think, those that love Hashem, the tzaddikim, Hashem will be a little easy on them. No. So that's why the Talmud says, we learn from the fact that Reshaim get punished in the world to come, even on the slightest sins, that also tzaddikim in this world will be punished for the sins that they do. And that's how he proves the order of the Gemara. But he continues on to say one more thing. He says the Talmud says on Rosh Hashanah 3 books are opened. The book of tzaddikim, the book of Reshaim, wicked people, and the book of Benonim, those which are undecided. On Rosh Hashanah itself, those that are inscribed in the book of life are already sealed then. And that's only for a tzaddik gamur, a 100% righteous individual. Almost impossible, if very few at all. And then there is the book of Reshaim, the wicked book, which are for Reshaim Gimurim, that they are written off and even decreed and signed off for death on Rosh Hashanah. And then there's Benonim. That's where almost all of us fall into. A little good, a little bad. Or a lot of good and a little bad. Or a lot of bad and a little good. That is the book of Benonim. And that book is written but undecided until Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is when it is sealed. And that's what God's mercy of the 10 days of Teshuvah. It's for all of us who find ourselves in that middle limbo with the extra push of those 10 days and Yom Kippur. Then we get Be'ezrat Hashem and Baruch Hashem inscribed in the book of life. The Zera Shimshon asks, very interesting. There's 3 books, right? Maybe there should be 5 to one complete extremity for tzaddikim gimurim, complete tzaddikim. And then the other, complete wicked people. In the middle, 50-50. Maybe there should be another 2 books. A book for those who are mainly righteous, but they have a little bad. So what does Hashem send? He sends a little bit of hardship to give them all of their merit in the world to come. And the opposite. Maybe we should have a book in between for people who are mainly wicked, and Hashem sends them a little bit of good in this world in order to give them all the punishment in the world to come. He says, maybe there should be 5 books. So he answers and he says, you know what? The reason why there are only 3 books is because when God comes to a tzaddik who has a little bit of no good, the reason why he's making it hard for them in this world is to upgrade them to the tzaddik gamur, to put them in that first book of a complete tzaddik. And a rasha, who Hashem sends a little bit of good into this world, is the one who is inscribed, unfortunately, in the book of wicked people and death, unfortunately. So there's only 3 books. But now he goes on in one more question. He says, if on Rosh Hashanah or even Yom Kippur, a wicked person is inscribed in the book of death, why do we see that wicked people live 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 years? If they're sealed for death, they should die. How come do they live from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah over and over, whether they are Yehudim or not? So he says a concept. This is a question we all have. He says that when the Talmud says that the person is inscribed in the book of Reshaim and for death, it means that their soul is sentenced to death. Unfortunately, for eternity. Unless they do teshuvah. Their body just continues to live. Okay, so they have a little more enjoyment, a little less enjoyment. They live in this world, they make money, they lose money, they help people, they hurt people. But as long as they are deemed and inscribed in the book of Reshaim, they are like written off to God, unfortunately. But God in His mercy and His compassion gives the opportunity for teshuvah. So what we come out of this is that El Emunah Ve'en Avel, God is a faithful God. He's also a merciful God. But everything we do is accounted for the good, and for the opposite, unfortunately, as well. And now that we find ourselves just a day after Yom Kippur, we can remind ourselves that HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts teshuvah, and with the teshuvah that we come and the atonement He grants us, everything is wiped. Anything bad that we've done, whether it was big or whether it was even small, even though we are judged on that, that's the point. We're judged and everything's taken into accounting, everything we do. But Hashem, in His ultimate mercy and compassion, He wipes that clean every year on Yom Kippur when a person comes with genuine and sincere teshuvah. So may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that we were all written and sealed in the book of life this year and for many more years to come. Amen. Amen.